On the first day of school, I skipped the opening ceremony and rushed straight to the hospital to schedule a full-body liposuction procedure. In my past life, my best friend, the campus belle, was a binge eater who indulged in excessive eating and drinking every day, yet her weight never budged from 90 pounds. Meanwhile, I seemed to gain weight just by drinking water, and eventually my weight skyrocketed to 300 pounds. I lost my guaranteed admission as a nationally recognized dance prodigy and became the laughingstock of the entire school. The guy I had a crush on publicly humiliated me, sneering, "That flabby body of yours is disgusting." My parents took me for medical checkups, but when no cause was found, they accused me of letting myself go and cut ties with me. I finally realized that whenever my roommate ate, I was the one who ended up gaining weight. I confronted her with the evidence, but she shoved me down the stairwell so hard that I went into cardiac arrest and died. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the very first day of college, the day I became her roommate. "What did you say?" "Full body liposuction." The doctor's pen clattered onto the desk. He adjusted his glasses and stared at me as if I were insane. "Young lady, you have a perfectly proportionate figure. There's absolutely no need for this kind of procedure." I looked at him calmly and handed over my bank card. "Doctor, I need an appointment. Money is no object. I want the fastest available." Memories from my past life surged through my mind like a tidal wave, while Eveina, the campus belle's best friend, was devouring fried chicken and pizza in the dorm. I was in the dance studio, and in front of everyone, my pants split with a loud rip. Jasper, the guy I had a crush on, frowned in disgust. "Sylvia, that flabby body of yours is absolutely revolting." I went from being a nationally recognized dance prodigy to a 300-pound monstrosity, lost my guaranteed college admission, got disowned by my parents, and was finally pushed down the stairs by Evelina's smiling face. "Sylvia, your fat is the source of my beauty." The suffocating feeling of cardiac arrest still feels as vivid as yesterday. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, only icy hatred remained in my gaze. "Doctor, my mind is made up." After completing all the procedures, I dragged my suitcase back to the dormitory. As I pushed the door open, two unfamiliar faces turned to look at me, my other two roommates. "Hi, I'm Mia." "I'm Chloe." I nodded in acknowledgement and headed straight for the empty bed. Just then, a silvery laugh rang out from beyond the door. "I'm back. I brought you the most delicious cream cake." Eveina walked in. She wore a beautiful princess dress, with waist-length hair and skin so fair it seemed to glow. She was as lovely as a porcelain doll, exactly as she had been in her past life. The moment she stepped in, her eyes zeroed in on me with pinpoint accuracy. "Oh, you must be Sylvia, our last roommate." "Hi, I'm Eveina." She smiled and handed me the cake she was holding. "Here, try this. It's the shop's signature dessert. Total calorie bomb, but absolutely to die for." Her eyes gleamed with an unsettling mix of anticipation and something darker. In my past life, it was accepting this very slice of cake that sent me spiraling into the abyss. I looked at her, a cold, mirthless smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "No, thank you." I gently pushed her hand away. "I'm on a diet." The smile on Evelina's face froze for a moment. "Sylvia, what's wrong? Don't you like me?" Evelina's eyes instantly welled up with tears, looking at me with such grievance as if I had committed some unforgivable sin. My roommate Mia immediately stepped in to smooth things over. "Sylvia," Evelina meant well, she waited in a long line just to get this. Chloe chimed in, "Yeah, it's just a piece of cake. Don't be so dismissive." Evelina quickly took the opportunity to back down, shoving the cake toward them. "It's fine, maybe Sylvia just doesn't like sweets. You guys have it. Don't let it go to waste." She spoke while shooting me a sidelong glance. Her eyes filled with venom. I sneered inwardly, just as I thought. The same old manipulative games. That evening, under the guise of mending dorm relations, Evelina ordered a massive takeout feast: spicy hot pot, barbecue skewers, fried chicken, bubble tea, nearly covered every inch of the dorm desk. "My treat today, eat to your heart's content." She beamed with an especially radiant smile. Mia and Chloe cheered, instantly filling the dorm with the tantalizing aroma of food. I put on my headphones, staring at the book with a blank expression, completely ignoring everything happening around me. Evelina kept watching me while devouring her food with gusto. "Sylvia, are you sure you don't want any?" This tripe is absolutely delicious. These grilled wings are to die for too. I paid no attention to her. Gradually, a familiar yet terrifying sensation washed over me. My stomach was clearly empty, yet it began to swell uncontrollably. My breathing grew heavy, and the jeans around my waist tightened as if an invisible hand were desperately stuffing things into my body. I abruptly stood up and rushed into the bathroom. In the mirror, my face was visibly rounding out, my jawline beginning to blur. I lifted my shirt to find my once flat stomach slightly swollen. The curse had begun. Every time Eveina eats, I'm the one who gains the weight. In my past life, I watched helplessly as I went from a promising dancer to a bloated, useless wreck. Fear and rage made my whole body tremble. No more. I can't go on like this. I stormed out of the bathroom and, under Evelina's stunned gaze, grabbed my phone and wallet before bolting out. Sylvia, where are you going? I didn't answer. I rushed downstairs as fast as I could and called the hospital. Doctor, it's me, Sylvia. My voice trembled with urgency. I need surgery right now. This instant. Miss Sylvia, please calm down. Surgeries require scheduling. And you? I'll pay extra. I cut the doctor off, my voice as cold as ice. I'll donate an entire building to this hospital if you'll just operate on me tonight. There was silence on the other end of the line. My family is very well off. Both my parents are successful business people. While donating a whole building might be an exaggeration, I could certainly afford to pay a sponsorship fee in the hundreds of thousands, or even millions, given a second chance at life. I've come to realize that wealth is merely superficial. All I truly want is to reclaim my own destiny. Half an hour later, a black car pulled up at the school gate. I got in the car and headed straight for the hospital. In the VIP ward, the hospital director and several chief physicians were already waiting for me. I signed consent form after consent form, each one filled with waivers and disclaimers. I have just one request, I said, looking them straight in the eye. Suck out every last bit of fat you can possibly get from my body. Don't leave a single gram behind. Just as they were wheeling me into the operating room, my phone started ringing. It's Jasper, the guy I had a crush on all through high school. I swiped to answer and stayed silent. His impatient, mocking voice came through the line. Sylvia, Evelina said you weren't feeling well and went out alone. Are you playing hard to get again? Throwing a tantrum on the first day of school? Do you think this makes you special? I listened quietly. The humiliating words he'd shouted at me in our previous life still echoing in my ears. Your flabby body is absolutely disgusting. Back then, my heart was shattered into a million pieces, but now, I just find it laughable. Jasper, I said softly, my voice eerily calm. Do you know what sound a pig makes? He froze. What? You'll find out soon enough. I hung up and powered off my phone, as the anesthesia crept into my veins. I smiled one last time before fading into unconsciousness. When I came to, I was wrapped from head to toe in bandages like a mummy. The wound burned with a stinging pain, yet I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. I lay in the hospital bed, recuperating for an entire week. A week later, I removed the bandages and stood before the mirror. The girl in the reflection had a slender figure, though still slightly swollen. The elegant collarbones and toned waistline were clearly visible. I'm back. After checking out of the hospital, I returned to campus. When I pushed open the dorm room door, Evelina was sitting at her desk with a bucket of fried chicken in front of her. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, and she immediately grabbed a drumstick and took a huge bite. She watched me with smug satisfaction, waiting to see me swell and distort into that pitiful state again. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I stood rooted to the spot, completely still, with no physical changes whatsoever. Evelina's expression slowly shifted from smugness to bewilderment. She quickly devoured another whole chicken leg. I still didn't react at all. Suddenly, Evelina's expression changed. She let out a pained ugh, clutched her stomach, and doubled over in agony. Her beautiful white dress seemed to be pulling a bit tight around the waist. Evelina's face instantly drained of color. She stared at me in disbelief, then looked down at her slightly rounded belly. How could, she murmured to herself. Her eyes filled with terror and confusion. I stood at the doorway, arms crossed, watching her coldly. What's wrong, Evelina? Did you eat too fast and get indigestion? My voice wasn't loud, but it struck her heart like a heavy hammer. Mia and Chloe also noticed something was wrong. Evelina, are you okay? You've gone completely pale, Eveina snapped back to reality, hastily covering her stomach with her hands while forcing a smile that looked more pained than genuine. I'm fine. Probably just ate too fast. She quickly gathered up the family-sized meal bucket from the table. I'm not feeling well, I'm going to lie down for a bit. She practically fled to her bed, drawing the curtains to shut out the world completely. The smile on my lips deepened. It seems my hunch was right. The atmosphere in the dorm became downright eerie over the next few days. Eveina stopped bringing back any snacks or takeout. She even started eating nothing but boiled vegetables for every meal. With portions smaller than mine, yet her weight kept ballooning, noticeably changing day by day. Her delicate oval face rounded out into plump cheeks, then a spare tire appeared around her once slender waist, and even her long legs, once her pride, had thickened noticeably. None of her beautiful princess-style dresses fit her anymore. Every morning she'd be the first up, spending ages in the bathroom where I could clearly hear stifled, heartbroken sobbing. I, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. I've been consistently practicing at the dance studio every day, and I can feel my body becoming more agile with each passing day. While my overall condition keeps improving, the joints that were once stiff due to obesity have regained their flexibility and strength. I've rediscovered the confidence and joy I feel when dancing. That day, just as I stepped out of the dance studio, I literally bumped into Jasper. His eyes lit up with admiration when he saw me. But the haughty look quickly returned. Sylvia, what's going on with you lately? Eveina says you've been bullying her so badly she's lost her appetite. I looked at him and found it ridiculous. Lost her appetite? I retorted. Does she look like someone who's lost her appetite to you? Jasper furrowed his brow and followed my gaze. Not far away, Eveina was emerging from the cafeteria. She wore oversized athletic wear in an attempt to conceal her fuller figure, but still appeared quite bulky. Jasper's expression instantly became a sight to behold. His lips parted as if to speak, but in the end he could only stare in disbelief at Evelina's retreating figure. Just then, Eveina caught sight of us. She froze, her gaze darting away as she instinctively tried to retreat, but it was already too late. I smiled and waved at her. Eveina, what a coincidence. Evelina's face instantly turned beet red. She looked at my radiant self, then at the stunned Jasper beside her. Her eyes brimming with envy and resentment, she finally couldn't hold back anymore. Eveina rushed up to me, lowered her voice, and hissed through clenched teeth, Sylvia, what on earth did you do to me? What did I do? I feigned surprise and looked at her with an innocent expression. Eveina, what nonsense are you talking about? I've been recuperating in the hospital and just returned to school a few days ago. What could I possibly have done to you? I blinked, my tone filled with concern. But you, on the other hand, have you been having hormonal issues lately? You've gained so much weight. Do you want me to accompany you to the hospital for a checkup? You, Eveina trembled with rage, her fleshy face contorted in anger. Jasper watched us from the side, his expression complex. His eyes shifted between the bloated, menacing figure of Eveina and my own upright posture and composed demeanor, his brow furrowing deeply. Eveina, you've actually put on a bit of weight lately, he said hesitantly. That remark was the final straw for Eveina. Jasper, even you're disgusted by me, she shrieked, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. It's all her, it's all Sylvia's fault. Hysterically pointing at me, she completely ignored the strange looks from people around her. I let out a sigh and shook my head. Eveina, I know you've been under a lot of stress lately, but that's no excuse for talking nonsense. I grabbed Jasper's arm and pulled him back. Let's just go for now. We shouldn't provoke her. I pulled Jasper along, and he followed me as if in a trance. Even from a distance, we could still hear Evelina's hysterical sobs behind us. Jasper, come back, let me explain. Jasper's face was ashen. She wasn't like this before. He muttered under his breath, people change, I replied flatly. From that day on, Eveina became the laughingstock of the entire school. The former campus belle had turned into an overeating, out-of-shape mess, with people suspecting she'd developed mental issues. As for me, with my regained figure and exceptional dance skills, I quickly stood out among the freshmen. I was chosen to be the lead dancer for the opening performance at the school's welcome party. When the news got out, Eveina smashed all her makeup in the dorm. How dare she? That position should have been mine. She glared at me with bloodshot eyes. Don't get cocky, Sylvia. you'll pay for this." I ignored her and went straight to the dance studio. I knew she wouldn't let this go. On the day of the welcome party, I put on my makeup, changed into my beautiful performance outfit, and made final preparations backstage. 10 minutes before the show started, a crew member handed me a bottle of water. "Sylvia, have some water to soothe your throat." I smiled as I took it and said thank you. The moment I twisted off the cap, I caught a faint, peculiar sweetness in the air. My hands stilled. I looked up and met Evelina's venomous glare from across the way. Jasper stood beside her, both watching me with sinister smirks plastered on their faces. A cold laugh echoed in my mind as I casually took a small sip from the bottle. Then, right in front of them, I poured all the remaining water into the nearby potted plant. Evelina's face instantly changed. I raised the empty bottle toward her, gave it a shake, and then tossed it into the trash bin. I mouthed silently to her, "You lost." Evelina's face twisted with rage. She shot me a venomous glare before grabbing Jasper's arm and storming off. I knew this was only the beginning. Sure enough, the moment I stepped forward, things went sideways. The music started, and I began dancing to the beat as the spotlight shone on me. Just as I was executing a difficult leap, the stage beneath my feet suddenly slipped. "Ah!" A collective gasp rose from the audience. My heart leaped into my throat, drawing on a dancer's instinct. I managed to twist my body mid-air. I hit the ground in an undignified heap, but thankfully, I wasn't hurt. As the lights came up, I saw a patch of clear, oily liquid right where I had slipped. My head snapped up, and I shot a piercing glare toward the wings of the stage. Evelina and Jasper were standing there, their faces still bearing the unmistakable, unconcealed marks of smug triumph and malice. "It's them again. In my past life, they destroyed my stage and ruined my life, step by step, just like this." The host hurried onto the stage to smooth things over, and staff members came up to check as well. I slowly got up from the ground and brushed the dust off my clothes. Just when everyone expected me to leave the stage in tears, I walked right into the spotlight. I spoke calmly into the microphone, "My apologies, we've had a minor hiccup." My gaze swept across the audience before finally settling on Evelina and Jasper. Some people, even when stuck in the gutter themselves, can't stand to see others in the spotlight. They'll resort to every dirty trick to drag others down into the mud with them. But a true dancer can't be taken down so easily. I took a deep breath and said to the sound engineer, "Excuse me, teacher, could we restart the music, please?" The entire hall fell silent. A few seconds later, thunderous applause filled the auditorium. The music started playing again. I slipped off the oil-stained dance shoes and began to dance barefoot across the stage once more, freed from the constraints of footwear. My movements became more fluid, more powerful. Every spin, every leap, burned with defiant fury and the fire of rebirth. It was a dance pulsating with raw vitality. I watched the audience below transition from astonishment to awe, and finally to complete captivation. I saw the teachers' approving gazes. I also spotted Evelina and Jasper, their faces contorted with envy and defeat. As the dance concluded, I stood center stage to thunderous, unending applause. I knew it. I had won. It wasn't just about winning the performance. It was about reclaiming my dignity. After the evening event, my advisor called me into the office. "Sylvia, you handled yourself exceptionally well today, keeping calm under pressure and showing true leadership," the counselor said to me with a smile. "But rest assured, the school will thoroughly investigate the oil stain on the stage and give you a proper explanation." I nodded and said, "Thank you, teacher." As I stepped out of the office, I saw Jasper waiting for me at the door. He seemed a bit uneasy, avoiding eye contact with me. "Sylvia, what is it?" I cut him off coldly. My tone caught him off guard, and his expression darkened. "I had nothing to do with what happened on stage," he protested. "It was all Evelina. She did it herself, and I couldn't stop her." His desperate attempt to distance himself was both pitiful and laughable. "Oh," I raised an eyebrow. "Then I suppose you didn't hand her that bottle of water laced with laxative backstage either." Jasper's face instantly drained of color. "How did you know?" "Not only do I know there's laxative in the water." I stepped closer to him, staring into his eyes. "I also know exactly what you're trying to pull. You want to humiliate me on stage, don't you? You want me to shit my pants in front of the entire school." My voice was quiet, yet each word cut through him like a knife twisting in his heart. Jasper's body began to tremble, cold sweat beading on his forehead. I didn't, you're just an accomplice. I finished the sentence for him. A spineless coward who hurts his former lover just to please his new flame. Jasper, you make me sick. Jasper flushed bright red from my scolding, unable to utter a single word. His gaze was filled with shame, anger, and a hint of regret that even he hadn't noticed. I couldn't be bothered to give him another glance and turned to leave. Back at the dorm, Eveina was already there. The moment she saw me, she started speaking in that sarcastic tone. Well, look who's back, our big star. How did it feel to take a tumble on stage? Mia and Chloe sat nearby in awkward silence. Not daring to speak, I ignored her and went straight to my desk. Turning on the computer, seeing that I was ignoring her, Eveina became even more provoked. Don't think you've won this, Sylvia. I'm telling you, as long as I'm around, you won't have a moment's peace. Oh really? I finally turned to face her, a strange smile playing on my lips. I clicked the mouse. The next second, Evelina's own voice emanated from the computer. That curse means whenever I eat, she's the one who gains weight. Why does she get everything from birth? Wealth, talent. While I'm just her shadow, I'm going to ruin her. I'm going to take everything from her. This was recorded by the voice recorder I had hidden in the dorm earlier. Evelina's voice echoed through the small dorm room. Crystal clear, her face shifted from arrogance to shock, and then to a deathly pallor. Mia and Chloe were also stunned, their mouths agape as they stared at Eveina in disbelief. Eveina, what did you mean by that? Mia stammered. What curse? Who's going to be the fat one? Eveina trembled violently as she frantically lunged forward to shut down my computer. No, I never said that. She made it up. I shoved her aside and turned the volume all the way up. That idiot Jasper actually thinks I like him. I'm just using him. Once I've drained him dry, I'll kick him to the curb. That bitch actually got liposuction. She sucked out all her fat and now I'm suffering the backlash. I have to find a way to make her gain all that weight back. The series of vicious and unhinged recordings completely tore away the sweet, charming facade Eveina always maintained. The looks in Mia and Chloe's eyes shifted from shock to sheer terror and disgust. Eveina, you're absolutely terrifying. We've been living with someone this malicious all along. They hastily gathered their belongings and fled the dormitory as if escaping. In the dorm, only Eveina and I remained. With her slumped on the floor, she stared at me with a hollow, desolate look in her eyes. Sylvia, you've won. She let out a bitter laugh. Are you feeling triumphant now? I walked up to her, looking down at her from my superior position. Smug? No. I'm merely reclaiming what was rightfully mine all along. As for you, I paused, enunciating each word deliberately. Your retribution has only just begun. I made a copy of the recording and posted it directly on the school forum. The title was, Shocking, the innocent campus belle is actually a vicious witch who put a curse on me. The moment the post went up, it instantly blew up the entire campus network. Holy crap. What kind of fantasy plot is this? A curse? For real? I've listened to the recordings. Eveina is downright vicious. My heart goes out to the OP. No wonder Evelina's blown up like a balloon lately. Karma's a bitch. Serves her right. I used to think Sylvia was a bit standoffish, but now I see she was just pushed to her limits. Public opinion completely shifted in an instant. Eveina became public enemy number one. Wherever she went, she was met with scornful stares and hushed whispers. Jasper was also implicated, branded as a scumbag and accomplice, and faced contempt wherever he went. The very next day, the school administration called me in for a talk. Both the academic advisor and department chair wore stern expressions. Sylvia, we're aware of what happened on the forum. The university will take strict disciplinary action regarding Evelina's inappropriate behavior toward you. However, the advisor shifted tone. This matter involves feudal superstitions which could create negative publicity. Would you consider taking the post down? I looked at them and smiled. Teacher, what if what was destroyed today wasn't my figure, but my life? What if Eveina had put poison in my water instead of laxatives? Would you still think this is just a matter of bad influence? The academic advisor and department chair were left speechless by my questions. I won't delete the post, I stated firmly. Not only will I keep it up, I'm going to the police. I'm charging her with assault and attempted murder. That afternoon, I went straight to the police station. when I handed the recording and all the evidence over to the police, their eyes were filled with sympathy as they looked at me. The police quickly opened a case and summoned Eveina and Jasper. Evelina's parents also rushed over from out of town. They were a seemingly ordinary working-class couple. They stopped me right at the police station entrance. And her mother immediately dropped to her knees before me. "Oh, Sylvia, I'm begging you, please let our Eveina go. She's still so young. She just made a foolish mistake in the heat of the moment." Evelina's father stood nearby with red-rimmed eyes, bowing to me over and over. "It's our fault for failing to raise her right. We'll compensate you. Name your price. Just please show some mercy and let her keep her life." I watched them with icy detachment. In my past life, my own parents had done the same, sacrificing me for the sake of their precious reputation, yet here were Evelina's parents, ready to cast aside all dignity for their daughter. "Auntie, when she pushed me down the stairs and tried to kill me, why didn't you think she was too young to know better? When she ruined my life with her curses, why didn't you think she was just being foolish?" I shook off her hand, my voice devoid of any warmth. "Now you come begging, it's too late. Your daughter will pay for everything she's done behind bars." With that, I turned away from them and walked straight into the police station. Inside the station, Eveina and Jasper were separated for interrogation. As the victim, I waited in another room. Before long, a female police officer entered the room. She appeared to be in her 30s, with an efficient demeanor and sharp, penetrating eyes. "Hello, Sylvia, I'm Lucy, the officer in charge of this case." She sat down across from me and opened her notepad. "We've listened to your recording and conducted a preliminary interrogation of Eveina. She stated that the curse she used was purchased from someone called Spirit Granny." Spirit Granny. I frowned, the name completely unfamiliar to me. "Yes," Lucy nodded. "According to Evelina's description, this Spirit Granny is extremely secretive, operating online to trade in some highly sinister items. We suspect this may be connected to a criminal group exploiting feudal superstitions for fraud and other illegal activities." I thought it was just Evelina's jealousy and malice at play. Little did I know there were more complicated matters lurking beneath the surface. Eveina said Jasper introduced her to this spirit medium. Lucy continued, "Jasper, I was stunned. How is this possible? Jasper comes from an ordinary family. How would he know people like that?" "Yes," Lucy's expression was grave. "Jasper denied it at first, but after we pressed him repeatedly, he finally confessed. He said his mother is one of the members of this criminal organization." I was thunderstruck. My mind went completely blank. Jasper's mother, I've met her a few times. She seemed like such a gentle, unassuming middle-aged woman. How could she? Jasper's mother became obsessed with occult practices in her early years and later joined this organization, growing up around it. Jasper picked up some knowledge himself, jealous of your family background and talents, and captivated by Evelina's beauty. He devised this vicious scheme. He had his mother procure that twin fat goo and gave it to Eveina. He thought this would not only destroy you, but also keep Eveina firmly under his control. Lucy let out a sigh. What he didn't anticipate was that Eveina would prove far more greedy and vicious than he'd imagined. "And you turned out to be stronger and smarter than any of them expected." I sat in the chair, silent for a long time. "So that's how it was, from the very beginning. I was just a pawn in their scheme, a sacrificial lamb. That's exactly how they joined forces to push my past self into hell." I was chilled to the bone by overwhelming hatred and lingering fear. What punishment will they face?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Eveina is charged with intentional assault, with solid evidence. She's looking at a minimum of 3 years. Jasper was the mastermind, which makes the circumstances more severe. As for his mother and that so-called spirit medium organization, our police force has set up a special task force. We will round them all up and bring them to justice." Lucy looked at me with a hint of reassurance in her eyes. "Sylvia, don't worry, justice may be delayed, but it will never be denied." I nodded, feeling my eyes grow slightly warm. "In this lifetime, I personally brought myself justice." The case progressed rapidly thereafter. Following Jasper's tip-off, the police followed the trail and swiftly dismantled the criminal gang led by the spirit medium. Jasper's mother was also apprehended and brought to justice, so the so-called sympathetic obesity curse wasn't some mystical hex at all, but rather a rare fungus capable of disrupting human metabolism. They implanted the parent fungus in Eveina. then transmitted the offspring to me through food she had handled. The fungal offspring multiplied inside me, wreaking havoc on my endocrine system and causing pathological obesity. My full-body liposuction procedure, while removing massive amounts of fat cells, inadvertently destroyed the living environment for the fungal offspring, causing them to die off en masse and creating the illusion of a backlash effect. The truth came out, sending chills down my spine. Eveina and Jasper were sentenced to 7 and 10 years in prison respectively, convicted on multiple charges including intentional assault and distribution of toxic substances. Jasper's mother, identified as one of the ringleaders, received a 15-year sentence. I was stretching at the dance studio when the news broke. Sunlight streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, warm and bright. My life, too, had finally cleared up after the storm. That day, I received an unexpected phone call. It was from my mother, Sylvia. We saw what happened online. Her voice sounded weary and full of remorse. It's our fault. Your father and I were wrong to doubt you back then. When would you have time to come home for a meal? I listened quietly without saying a word. Coming home, in my past life, they called me a disgrace for tarnishing their reputation, cut ties with me, and left me to fend for myself. Now that I've been vindicated, they want me back. No, thank you, I said flatly. I have no home. With that, I hung up the phone. Some wounds, once inflicted, can never be healed. I won't waste another ounce of emotion on people who don't deserve it. Setting down my phone, I noticed someone standing at the entrance of the dance studio. It was Officer Lucy. She wasn't in uniform today, dressed in casual clothes. She seemed much more approachable. Just wanted to check in on you, she said with a smile as she walked in. Glad to see you're doing well. That puts my mind at ease. Thank you, officer, I said sincerely. Please, call me Lucy, she said, giving my shoulder a reassuring pat. It's all behind you now. Take good care of yourself moving forward. She paused, as if remembering something, and then began to speak. By the way, there's something I think you should know. It seems Eveina has really developed mental issues in prison. She talks to the wall every day, saying how fat and ugly she is. Crying non-stop, no one can get through to her. The doctor said her psyche completely collapsed after years of living with jealousy and resentment, compounded by that devastating blow. Lucy looked at me and sighed. Sometimes, the demons within one's heart are more terrifying than any curse. I remained silent, gazing out the window at the clear blue sky without a single cloud. What truly destroyed Eveina wasn't backlash, nor was it the law, it was her own heart. Long consumed by envy and malice, college life returned to normal. With Eveina and Jasper gone, my world became much quieter. I poured all my energy into dance. My professional skills were already top tier, and with the intensive training I'd been putting in, I quickly rose to prominence in our department. During my sophomore year, I represented our university in the National College Dance Competition. I took home the gold medal with my original contemporary dance piece titled Rebirth. The inspiration for the choreography came from my own personal journey, from the abyss of despair, through the struggle for survival, to the final metamorphosis and rebirth. As I stood on the highest podium, bathed in the spotlight, I saw the beaming faces of my academic advisor and department chair in the audience. I also saw many of my classmates cheering for me. Applause and honors enveloped me completely. This is what I deserve. I seized it back from fate with my own hands. After the match, a man in a suit approached me. Miss Sylvia, hello. He handed me a business card. I'm the artistic director of Swan, one of the country's top dance companies. I saw your performance. It was absolutely stunning. We'd be honored to have you join us. The Swan Dance Company, that had been my dream since childhood. In my previous life, I was so overweight that I didn't even qualify for their interview. But now, they've extended an olive branch to me. My eyes grew moist as I stared at the embossed lettering on the business card. I nodded firmly. I do. I took a leave of absence from school and officially joined the Swan Dance Company. Starting as a trainee at the most basic level, I spent every day in the practice room, pouring my heart and sweat into it. Though it was tough, I cherished every moment of it. I knew with every step I was getting closer to the stage of my dreams. 2 years later, my standout performance in the ballet, Carmen, earned me the position of principal dancer in the company. My face was plastered across the most prominent billboards in every major city. I became the dance world's brightest rising star. My parents have been trying to reach out through every possible channel, apologizing and wanting to make amends. They transferred the family company shares to my name and signed over the downtown villa to me, but I never responded, not even once. I'll take the money, it's what I'm owed anyway, but family bonds, once broken, can never be mended. That day, the dance troupe was scheduled to perform in a coastal city as part of their tour. Before the performance, I had an afternoon to myself. I went to the beach alone. The sea breeze tousled my long hair, carrying a faint briny tang in the air. I slipped off my shoes and danced barefoot. Moving slowly across the soft sand, no music, no audience. In my world, there was only the sound of crashing waves and the untamed wind. My body felt so light, my soul so free. I danced, laughed, and twirled, as if I could leave all my past behind. With a casual glance back, I saw several caregivers wheeling a woman in a wheelchair out to enjoy the sunshine at the entrance of the nearby nursing home. The woman was dressed in a loose hospital gown, her figure still swollen, her eyes were vacant. Drool trickled from the corner of her mouth, and she kept mumbling something under her breath. It was Eveina. Her mental state had continued to deteriorate, so her family had her transferred here from prison. Our eyes met briefly in the air. Her eyes were utterly still, like stagnant water. She no longer recognized me. I averted my gaze and continued dancing without pause. Her life had long since rotted away in endless regret and madness. My life is just beginning. The setting sun stretched my shadow into a long, elongated silhouette, like a butterfly freed from all constraints. I danced a grand, solitary dance of freedom in the golden light, a performance meant for me alone. Story 2. On the day Kevin was elected as the chief scientist, his white moonlight came to him. She said that she didn't abandon him on the day the zombie outbreak occurred, and that I had lied to him. He didn't doubt it and let his white moonlight inject me with the virus, turning me into a zombie. Later, we both were reborn. He couldn't wait to confess his love to his white moonlight, and then watched helplessly as she pushed him into the zombie horde in order to escape. 1. In the doomsday, zombies were rampant and supplies were in short supply. Kevin had worked hard for 8 years and finally managed to be selected into the Academy of Sciences and become the chief scientist, looking at the fresh vegetables distributed by the government in fixed quotas. I finally felt that all the hardships had come to an end. I carried the heavy lunchbox and went home, only to see the person I least wanted to see, Isla, Kevin's white moonlight. She was sitting on the sofa and took the things from my hands like the hostess. You're back. I felt annoyed in my heart. She came to the door as soon as Kevin's identity as the chief scientist was announced. She was probably up to no good. What are you so guilty about? Afraid that I'll tell Kevin what you've done? What? Isla's words made me confused. If it weren't for your nonsense, how could Kevin have such a big misunderstanding of me? As she spoke, her face suddenly changed and she rushed towards me. I was unprepared and only felt a sharp pain in my shoulder. I quickly pushed her away. I saw that Isla was holding a syringe in her hand, and an unknown liquid was still dripping from the tip of the needle. I was extremely horrified. What are you doing? My heart began to beat violently, and my head was throbbing with pain, as if it was about to explode at any moment. She had injected me with the zombie virus. My facial features soon degenerated, and I couldn't speak normally. In my gradually blurring vision, Kevin came out from nowhere. Saffron, if it weren't for you lying to me at that time, saying that Isla left me behind, how could I have even looked at you? My consciousness was already beginning to fade. It took me a long time to react. Kevin was talking about the time when the zombies first broke out. Their group was doing experiments in the research laboratory when a large number of zombies suddenly appeared. He went to get the raw materials, and Isla and the other classmates didn't care about him at all and ran away in panic. I had a crush on Kevin. When I learned that he was left in the experimental building without knowing anything, I resolutely went to look for him. To avoid the zombies, I had a hard time walking. I fell from a height once in the middle and broke my head. Kevin turned a blind eye to my injuries. When he learned about the zombie outbreak, he was eager to go find Isla. I said that she had left with the other classmates and was safe, so he gave up. Later, Kevin and I were sent to the same shelter and lost contact with the others. We suffered a lot in the middle. Hunger and starvation were nothing. We almost died in a gas leak at one point. Later, Kevin and I got together naturally. We were admitted to the Academy of Sciences together and worked on research day and night. I didn't expect that after so many years together, with just a few random words from Isla, he would believe her easily. He let her inject me with the zombie virus. Before my consciousness completely dissipated, I heard Isla hypocritically say, "Isn't it too cruel to inject her with the T virus?" Kevin snorted coldly. "This is what she deserves for pushing you into the zombie horde, too." The comprehensive influenza vaccine has entered the clinical stage, and currently, 100,000 people have signed up to participate in the clinical trial. On the TV, the news anchor was reporting. People around were talking in low voices. How is that possible? Exactly. The influenza virus mutates very quickly. How could one injection solve all the problems? Probably because the flu has been so severe in recent years that they want to appease the public. I pressed my chest and looked at the clock on the wall, trying to calm down. I had actually been reborn and returned half a year before the zombie outbreak. Within my field of vision, Kevin and Isla were sitting together, and he was attentively peeling shrimp for her. On my plate in front of me, there were green vegetables piled up like a small mountain. They were the water spinach that Kevin used to hate the most. My pupils suddenly shrank, and then, before Kevin noticed my gaze and looked up, I buried my head in my meal. So Kevin had also been reborn. I must never let him find out that I had been reborn too. Kevin was an extremely selfish and cold-blooded person. When I was with him in the last life, I had already discovered that, in the doomsday, everyone was in danger, and people would do anything to survive. I just thought he had become like this in a specific environment. But the conversation between him and Isla before I died made me understand that he had always been like this. He could believe Isla in everything else, but saying that I pushed her into the zombie horde was completely nonsense. In the early days of the zombie outbreak, there were no large groups of zombies. Later, as they had difficulty hunting, they gradually evolved into gathering zombies. Ordinary people wouldn't know this, but we who had been in the research institute for many years knew it very well. So before I died, I clearly knew a fact. Isla really wanted to replace me and become the wife of the chief scientist, but the one who wanted me dead was Kevin. Part of the core technology that made him the chief scientist was in my hands. He had asked me to give it all to him to save the trouble of subsequent research and development. But I didn't expect that when Isla came to the door, he would directly use her to get rid of me. As my legal husband, he could then justifiably apply to inherit my research results. If such a person knew that I had also been reborn, perhaps fearing my revenge, he would strike first. Fortunately, I was reborn a little later, and the food on my plate was chicken, which I would get sick of eating in the doomsday. Just based on this point, Kevin, who looked over, quickly dispelled his doubts. I took a few bites of rice. The fragrance of the real rice, not the synthetic kind, finally gave me a sense of the reality of being reborn. I took out my phone and immediately sent a message to my dad. Stop the research funding for my classmates. I liked Kevin and also admired his abilities, so in my father's name, I sponsored the research funding for the group with the best grades in our class, which was the group Kevin was in. It was also thanks to this that he had the opportunity to come into contact with a lot of cutting-edge technologies. When everyone was desperately trying to get into the research center for a meal, Kevin had more advantages than others. Fortunately, the project my dad sponsored had just started, and the school was still reviewing it, and the funds hadn't been allocated yet. This time, without this prerequisite, I wanted to see how far Kevin could go in the doomsday. Finally, when class was over, I couldn't wait to rush home. While waiting for the subway, I ran into Kevin and Isla. Compared to their ambiguous relationship in the last life, the two of them were now inseparable. Isla's parents both worked in foreign-funded enterprises, and her family was well off. Kevin liked her, and she also had a crush on him, but Kevin's terrible family background made him very inferior, so he had always been too afraid to confess his love to her. This was something I overheard him say to his friend in the last life. Now that he knew the doomsday was approaching and all the so-called fame and fortune would turn to nothing, he finally dared to boldly pursue love. I heard from my classmates that the two of them confirmed their relationship half a year ago. That is to say, Kevin was reborn at least half a year earlier than me. Such a smart person as him couldn't have known about the zombie outbreak and done nothing. I was very annoyed in my heart and was afraid that he had already had dealings with the government's top brass. If so, it might not be so easy for me to take revenge. Fortunately, I had always been low-key, and he only regarded me as a child from an ordinary family. After the zombie outbreak, I was out of touch with my father for a long time. When he found me, Kevin and I were already married. At that time, supplies were scarce, even as a senior official of the coalition government. He could only take me alone to the absolute safety zone. After careful consideration, I refused. I thought that when we had a child, we would give this quota to the child, but because everything was uncertain, I didn't tell Kevin, so if I had any private actions, it would be difficult for him to suspect me, including stopping the experimental sponsorship. When I got home, my dad was already there. He was very busy with work, but he insisted on having dinner with me. At this time, he still had thick black hair, combed in a pompadour, and looked handsome. It was very different from the old appearance in my memory. My eyes turned red, and I threw myself into his arms. "Dad, I miss you so much." My voice was a little choked, and my dad immediately became anxious. "Did Kevin bully you? I'll go find him." My mother died early, and my dad had brought me up hard and spoiled me. I talked to him about everything, including my crush on Kevin. Today, I asked him to stop the funding and then cried in his arms. Naturally, he would suspect Kevin, but I shook my head and denied it. "No, Dad, I was reborn." With the doomsday approaching, my dad, as a leading figure in the pharmaceutical industry, might be able to do something in advance. I told him about my experiences in the last life, including the information I had mastered after entering the Academy of Sciences. However, I concealed my relationship with Kevin, fearing that he would go to Kevin in a fit of anger and disrupt my plan. My dad just listened to me silently until I finished speaking. After a long time, he said faintly, "There's no way to talk about this." I was stunned for a moment and then nodded slowly. "That's right, my family was engaged in pharmaceutical research and development. If we warned the government in advance, when the zombies broke out in the future, we would definitely become the number one scapegoat in such an environment. There were so many people who were wrongfully killed to appease public anger, but we can prepare more raw materials according to the research direction you mentioned. Since there are still 6 months left, it's still not too late for me to invest in agriculture." My dad knew that I had survived in the doomsday for nearly 10 years and no longer regarded me as a child. He asked me a lot of details and didn't let me go to rest until dawn. He then rushed to the company to quickly arrange things. I originally wanted to ask my dad to find out if Kevin had already made some kind of contact with the government's top brass, but after the long talk, I realized that I was overthinking it. Because of the increasingly severe flu that had lasted for many years, all kinds of conspiracy theories were running wild. At this time, if someone said that there would be a zombie outbreak, no one would believe him. My heart finally felt a little more at ease. I directly asked for leave and rested at home for a day to sort out my emotions. For the next day, when I went to school, my classmate told me that Kevin was looking for me. The classmate gave me the phone number he left, looking indignant. "Do you think he's crazy? He has something to ask you, but he doesn't want your phone number and asks you to call him. He asked me several times if I gave it to you, and I said I forgot." Kevin, after being reborn, was quite unpopular. Probably because he thought the doomsday was approaching and there was no need to maintain relationships with classmates, so except for Isla, he had a sullen face towards everyone, and because he was far ahead in practical operations and was highly regarded by the dean, he was even more arrogant. I carefully thought about the tone and attitude I should have now and went straight to him. "Classmate Kevin, did you want to see me?" Isla was chatting and laughing with him when she saw me coming. She looked very vigilant. She was the beauty of our department. Her family was rich and she was beautiful, and she was the object of admiration of the boys in the class. She had never looked at me directly before, but in this life, her outstanding boyfriend treated me rather specially, so she had a deep sense of hostility towards me. Yesterday, when I relaxed, I belatedly realized that there were many strange memories. Kevin had pulled me into their group half a year ago and often organized brainstorming sessions for everyone. Although he also had a sullen face towards me, he would discuss topics with me alone. He gave me some very difficult chemistry problems to solve, saying that he thought I had talent in this area and might be able to participate in competitions with him in the future. Naturally, I was very happy to be valued so highly by the person I had a crush on, so I took those problems to consult the researchers in my dad's company, and those complicated problems all pointed in the same direction, the research results that I was unwilling to give to Kevin in the last life. Yesterday was the day when I was supposed to hand over the most crucial step to Kevin, but I asked for sick leave, so Kevin, who never said a word to me outside of school, rarely condescended to look for me. I saw him raise his eyelids, with an arrogant expression. Have you solved the problems I asked you to do? I can't solve them. Kevin frowned and put pressure on me. Wasn't it going well before? Why can't you solve it now? In fact, he knew very well that this crucial step was very difficult to achieve. In the last life, it was only after the zombie outbreak, with enough data support, that I spent 5 years to complete it, even before being reborn. Although I had asked many people for help and kept delaying, I still couldn't solve it. The reason why Kevin said it so easily was to pressure me. He hoped that I could crack my own patent from a few years later for his use. Presumably, he was also doing research privately. In the strange memories, Kevin had also taken me to the applied laboratory. There were many reagents and devices needed for this patent in it, but the core theory of the patent was based on a paper my dad hadn't published yet. And that paper was the result of my dad's more than 20-year research. Kevin would never be able to figure it out in his life. As for the part of his research results that he protected tightly, I didn't even bother to peek at them. I was the one who did the data collection and analysis, and I also calculated the results and verified their correctness. The reason for going through all this trouble and inadvertently letting Kevin discover the research results was just to take care of his self-esteem. I had been hanging around in the laboratory with my dad since I was a child. Although I was not yet 20 years old, I already had more than 10 years of experimental experience. We entered the Academy of Sciences smoothly under extreme competition conditions. Seemingly, he contributed a lot, but actually, it was all thanks to me living again. I was very glad that I had never told him the truth. 5. Kevin didn't get the result he wanted, and his eyes looking at me became even more disgusted. 10 years in the doomsday hadn't made him develop the slightest affection for me. He tacitly allowed me to stay by his side, obviously just to use me. You can't do this, Saffron. If you can't even solve such a simple problem, then what's the use of you staying in this group? Kevin was certain that I was crazy about him and that in order not to lose the only chance to be close to him, I would work even harder. I lowered my head and thought for a moment, then agreed. Indeed, Kevin had an expression of, I knew it, thinking that I would sincerely promise to solve the difficult problem as I had done many times before, but he didn't expect me to continue, so I voluntarily withdraw from the group. What did you say? Kevin didn't expect the opposite result and his face turned livid. Isla beside him couldn't help but curl the corners of her lips. She was used to playing the good guy. She took Kevin's arm and seemingly spoke for me. Kevin, don't be so fierce. She doesn't have the ability. It's useless for you to keep her in our group. Kevin looked at her, and the disgust in his eyes instantly turned into tenderness. Obviously, he never believed that Isla had abandoned him when the zombies broke out. He thought it was a lie I told in order to be with him. He deliberately raised his voice so that everyone around could hear. Indeed, there's no need to keep this kind of trash in our group, I sneered. Trash? Kevin, you asked me to solve the problems that you couldn't figure out yourself. If I'm trash, then what are you? Now that I knew Kevin's trump card, I had nothing to fear. Kevin was a bit surprised that I would talk back to him. Then he regained his usual disdain for me. Saffron. Remember your attitude today. He was certain that with the experience from the previous life, he would easily enter the Academy of Sciences after the zombie outbreak, and once he entered any department of the coalition government, he would have privileges. At that time, he would become the object of everyone's pursuit, but without my help, what was he? I'll remember. You also remember not to come to me with unsolvable research topics in the future. Kevin didn't take it seriously. Thinking that I was just saying harsh words out of anger, he waved his hand, dismissing me like a beggar. In the following few days, Kevin was surrounded by a low-pressure aura. Everyone thought it was because of the quarrel between the two of us, only I knew it was because he had received the notice of the termination of the sponsorship. Kevin had been preparing for the huge sponsorship that was about to come. This was his most likely chance to research my part of the patent. It was also the biggest stepping stone for him to enter the Academy of Sciences after the doomsday arrived. However, in this life, He wouldn't be able to wait for it. Helplessly, Kevin asked someone to give me a way out. His lackeys took turns coming to me to speak well of him, hoping that I would continue the previous research. I refused one by one, saying that I had more important things to do. I wasn't lying. I really had more important things to do. I found a radical organization that opposed the comprehensive vaccine and said that I could sponsor their protest march. However, the form of the march needed to be decided by me, I told them, since they thought that the comprehensive vaccine would become a new type of virus and have an inestimable impact on humanity, then they should parade as zombies. Presumably, it would cause quite a stir. Everyone agreed, and so, under my suggestion, they started the parade rehearsal. Each of them received a considerable amount of activity funds, and I would use them to start my revenge. 6. It was another weekend. After finishing my work and going home, I found that my dad was also there. Since learning that the zombies were about to break out, he had been running around outside, and we hadn't seen each other for several days. I happily threw myself into his arms. He rubbed my head. "Guess who's here?" I looked at him with a puzzled expression and followed his gaze to the kitchen. I saw a tall and burly man wearing an apron. Busy in front of the stove, my dad looked at me mysteriously. "Can't guess, right? This is Brother Leo," I murmured to myself. The already stiff back in the kitchen became even more tense. After a moment, Leo turned around unnaturally. His eyes met mine and then quickly moved away. Saffron. Leo was 3 years older than me and was a former neighbor in the same community. I especially liked to follow him around, calling him Brother Leo, Brother Leo. When I was in the 3rd year of junior high school, Leo was 18. At that time, Leo's parents were getting a divorce, and neither of them remembered his birthday. To cheer him up, I made a crooked, shaped cake by myself and went to find him. He was in a low mood, saying that neither his uncle nor his aunt wanted him and that no one liked him. I quickly comforted him, saying that I liked him and that I liked him the most. Before I could finish speaking, I was pulled into Leo's arms. He used so much strength, as if he wanted to crush me into his body. His eyes were also very fierce, with something that made me inexplicably scared rolling inside. I struggled and accidentally slapped him in the face. The clear sound stunned both of us. After a long time, he reacted first, lowered his eyes, and said sorry. Then, without waiting for me to react, he strode out of my sight. Since then, I never saw Leo again. He went to a distant relative's house that night, changed his phone number, and cancelled all his social accounts. I wanted to apologize to him, but I could never contact him again. In the previous life, I never saw Leo again until before the zombie outbreak. Now that he could appear in my house, I'm afraid it was the result of my dad's intervention. I knew what he meant. The day I confessed that I was reborn, my dad also asked me a lot of things about safety. I said that the military would take over everything. So he probably wanted to find someone with a strong background to protect me. Alas, Leo has changed so much. How did you recognize him? My dad widened his eyes and couldn't help looking Leo up and down, trying to find the obvious features that would allow me to recognize him at a glance. Leo had indeed changed a lot. If it weren't for the fact that we met several times after the doomsday, I would actually have a hard time recognizing him. He had suffered a double blow from his parents' divorce and my slap back then, and he failed the college entrance examination. Subsequently, he didn't repeat his senior year of high school and directly enlisted in the army. When the zombie outbreak occurred, he had just been admitted as a non-commissioned officer. He was ordered in a crisis to suppress the riots and resist the zombies. As the number of scars increased, his military rank also got higher and higher. Our first encounter was when he received a mission to transfer the research personnel. Later, he saved me from the zombie horde and escorted me in the riot-torn city. After that, we became familiar with each other again. Leo explained to me that he liked me and thought I was confessing my love to him back then. He was so happy that he was abrupt. Actually, the like in my mouth was the kind of like he thought. It's just that he hugged me too tightly at that time and scared me. He was the object of my secret crush for 5 years since primary school, but because of his disappearance, it ended without a result. Later, I liked Kevin because when he pursed his lips and remained silent, there was a bit of Leo's shadow in the corners of his eyes and eyebrows. However, at that time, I was already married to Kevin. Saying these things would only add trouble to Leo, so I just smiled and, generously, forgave him. I thought that we would meet by chance one day after the zombie outbreak, just like in the previous life. I didn't expect that the reunion after growing up would be so sudden. 7. I hadn't mentioned the Doomsday Leo to my dad, so he didn't know the reason why I could recognize him. I casually found an excuse and then greeted Leo enthusiastically like when I was a child. Dad, brother Leo is a guest. Why are you still making him cook? My dad shrugged helplessly. He said you like sweet and sour fish and wanted to show off his skills. As he spoke, he winked at me blatantly in front of Leo. Isn't he much better than that Kevin? I was speechless. Don't try to match. Make me randomly. Since our eyes didn't avoid Leo when we were communicating, I saw the little light that had just appeared in his eyes go out instantly. Leo curled the corners of his lips and pretended to be relaxed. I remember you liked sweet and sour fish when you were a child. I wanted you to taste my cooking. All right then. Thank you for your hard work, brother Leo. Then Leo went into the kitchen again, and I pulled my dad into the room. Dad, I told you not to worry blindly. Why are you still? My dad interrupted me with an innocent look. Worry? What worry? I just happened to meet Leo and invited him to our house. Don't pretend. I never saw him in the previous life. What am I pretending for? I didn't go to the mountains to build greenhouses in the previous life either. What do you mean? I just happened to meet the army on a training march on the way. Leo called me and said he was Leo, so I recognized him. I frowned. Really? Of course it's true. He used to study so well. How could I know that he would fail the college entrance examination and go to join the army? Speaking of this, my dad changed the subject, however, after I learned that he was in the 43rd Army. I really wanted him to take care of you more in the future. I sighed. It will be so chaotic in the future. He has military orders. How can he take care of me? My dad stammered. You can. No way. I raised my voice and interrupted my dad. My dad was startled. Okay. No way then. Don't get excited. Actually, even if I didn't say it, my dad could surely guess that I had suffered a lot in the doomsday. So he wanted to make me as safe as possible after the zombie outbreak to the greatest extent, but being reborn, I no longer want to have any emotional entanglements with anyone other than my dad, especially Leo. I know him too well. Even if he knows that the zombies are going to break out, he will still stay in the army without hesitation, rush to the front line, and risk his life. I don't want to worry about him every day. I just want to continue my research and race against the constantly evolving virus. At the long-awaited reunion dinner, the three of us talked and laughed, but there was a sense of estrangement in the air. Leo left early. My dad said that he felt dizzy after drinking some wine and insisted that I see him off, so we went out together in silence. When we reached the gate, I raised a smile. Brother Leo, be careful on the way. Leo turned around and faced me. His tall body trapped me by the door. Saffron, his Adam's apple rolled, and his voice was a bit hoarse. Before, I interrupted Leo. Brother Leo, it was all a misunderstanding before. I know that. Don't take it to heart. I didn't want to hear him say that he liked me, so as not to be embarrassed when we met in the future. Leo saw that I didn't want to mention the past, so he closed his mouth. Since Saffron doesn't mind, then I won't say it. 8. On Monday, Kevin became arrogant again. Isla showed off everywhere that their group had won the qualification to visit a pharmaceutical company because of their outstanding performance. She walked up to me pretending to be regretful. If we had received this reward earlier, you could have gone too. It doesn't matter. I didn't want to go anyway. My indifferent look made her face darken. You don't have to force a smile. However, with your qualifications, even if you could visit Lachine Pharmaceuticals, you wouldn't get the qualification to intern there. She talked to herself like a clown. Lachine Pharmaceuticals was a gift from my grandfather to me after I was born. It was originally just a small company. But under my dad's operation, it had risen suddenly in recent years and become the most promising pharmaceutical group. Their invitation was at my behest. As compensation for the unimplemented sponsorship, they were given the qualification to visit, and the zombies, who had rehearsed for many days, would welcome them there. It couldn't be called revenge. It was just a warm-up prank. As for the real revenge, it would come after the doomsday. There was no accurate figure for the time when the first zombie appeared. In the previous life, people tended to believe that the zombies had appeared for a while before suddenly breaking out one day, so I'm not afraid of Kevin exposing the zombie illusion I carefully arranged. Another weekend, I had a good sleep and was ready to enjoy the big show I directed. Unexpectedly, as soon as I went downstairs, I saw Leo busy in the dining room. "Saffron, you're awake, why are you here?" I felt inexplicably guilty. I was afraid that he would find out that I had gone to great lengths to bully my classmates and think of me as a bad person. My suddenly raised tone made Leo misunderstand. He just thought that I didn't want to see him, and the smile in his eyes disappeared completely. "Sorry, Uncle said that he might be rarely at home during this period and asked me to come and take care of you when I have time." "He said he told you." Leo's expression was a bit aggrieved, but in his deep eyes, there was more unease. It was very different from his decisive and fierce appearance in the Doomsday. My heart twitched. "I'm sorry, Brother Leo, I didn't know you were coming. I made an appointment with a friend." "Okay, you can put the food in the refrigerator. I'll eat it when I come back. Let's add each other's contact information. You can tell me in advance if you want to come over in the future." Leo's dim eyes regained their luster, and he curled the corners of his lips. "Okay." After many years, I had Leo's contact information again. He asked very distantly if he could give me a ride. I refused, and he didn't say anything more. According to the plan, I successfully arrived at the control room. The director team and various departments were already in place. I said that I had been bullied by them at school and wanted them to help me get revenge. The money was in place, and what was required wasn't anything illegal, so they readily agreed. Half an hour later, Kevin and his group were divided into 3 groups to visit different places respectively. Kevin naturally wanted to be with Isla, and because of his obsession with experiments, as I expected, he chose to visit the laboratory. Since entering the laboratory required very complicated disinfection procedures, the 2 of them were first arranged in the waiting room. Then the staff who received them was called away by me under the pretext of something. The actors, who were pretending to be zombies, began to appear. 9. It was very simple. First, let a zombie pass by the door of the waiting room. The door was ajar, although it was just a shadow flashing by. I believe Kevin could definitely see it. That was a conditioned reflex from the previous life when he had survived countless hardships. It was engraved in his bones. Sure enough, on the monitor, Kevin looked towards the door and his face turned deathly pale. Isla didn't understand. "What's wrong?" "Kevin, there's a half-way through his words, Kevin, who turned to look at Isla, closed his mouth. His expression was a bit confused. He was clearly looking directly at Isla, but his gaze seemed to be looking at something else through her. Probably because I protected him so well in the Doomsday, he subconsciously wanted to find me. Maybe I was wrong. Kevin murmured to himself. I had installed a radio receiving device on the temporary visitor badges they were wearing, so I could hear even the slightest sound clearly. I saw Kevin build up his courage for a long time, then suddenly stood up and planned to go and find out. Isla thought his state was very strange. She called him several times, but he ignored her as if he had lost his soul, making her nervous too. Then, Zombie No. 2 appeared, walking distortedly into the waiting room from another door. He deliberately made a lot of noise, scaring Kevin. "Zombies, run!" Kevin screamed in fear, and Isla was also startled by him. She didn't see anything but just ran wildly following Kevin. Doomsday survival rules. When avoiding zombies, don't go to open outdoor places, don't take the elevator, don't run to places you're not familiar with, go to the top floor to wait for rescue when it's safe. Having escaped from death many times, Kevin already had muscle memory. He ran up the stairs regardless, because all the top floors in the Doomsday had safe houses. I watched as Kevin ran all the way, with Isla, who was left far behind by him, crying and calling out to him. Several people watching the surveillance with me were quite puzzled by Kevin's extremely frightened look. Is he really that cowardly? I just smiled and didn't say anything. Actually, such a reaction was quite calm in the Doomsday. I had seen many people who were so scared that they soiled their pants. The more times a person survived in dangerous situations, the deeper their fear of death actually was. I probably had such an expression when I was fleeing for my life, but unlike Kevin, I would never abandon my companions. TSK, if there really were zombies, and he left his girlfriend so far behind, I think they're definitely going to break up. While they were talking, Kevin had already rushed to the top floor. The iron door leading to the rooftop was right in front of him, because he fell down on the way. Isla was able to catch up with him quickly. "Kevin, what are you going crazy for?" Kevin finally remembered Isla and swallowed hard with difficulty. I'll explain to you when we're safe. Hurry, let's go to the rooftop. His gaze looked towards the crack of the door. At this time, it was noon, and the sun was shining brightly. There were no moving figures. So at least the entrance was safe. Kevin let out a slight sigh of relief, but his hand on the doorknob didn't open it easily. He subtly pressed his hand against Isla's back. You go in first. 10. I was amused by Kevin's meanness. In the doomsday, when facing an unknown door, the person who went in first almost had to be determined to die. Kevin had experience. In case there really were zombies, he could probably escape. But he chose to let Isla, who knew nothing, enter the door first. If there really were zombies, Isla would surely die. Just as he was slowly opening the door and planning to push Isla in, she suddenly stopped. Kevin, I'm scared. You go in first. Isla twisted her body, trying to get rid of the force behind her. However, Kevin directly grabbed her arm and threw her towards the open crack of the door. Isla grabbed the handle by the door. I'm not going in. Kevin. Although I couldn't give an early warning for people to be prepared to face the zombies. But I was still using my own way to make sure that more people could survive after the zombie outbreak. I asked someone to draw small zombie comics, mostly with ridiculous escape methods. The radicals had already spread them widely during the promotional parade. I had also seen them on Isla's desk. She was probably influenced by them, so she resisted so much. However, her strength was no match for Kevin's, and she was finally pushed into the iron door with a scream. Subsequently, the shrill scream stopped abruptly. There was nothing on the empty rooftop. Isla was stunned for a moment and then collapsed on the ground as if she had lost all her strength. Kevin waited for a while before entering. He hypocritically showed some concern and then his gaze fixed on the house in the middle of the rooftop. A safe house. How could it be? Kevin's relaxed expression became tense again. One of the conspiracy theories seemed to be confirmed at this moment. He strode towards the safe house, walking faster and faster. Although no more zombies were seen, the appearance of the safe house made him more and more frightened. Isla was also made extremely frightened by him. She didn't have time to get angry with him and quickly got up from the ground and followed him closely. The safe house in the doomsday was definitely the safest place. The door was extremely sturdy and required facial recognition. If zombies rushed in when the door was being closed, the automatic scanning system would immediately release an anesthetic gas that could make both humans and zombies lose consciousness. Before they woke up, the mobile forces would arrive here first to clear the zombies. So facing this absolutely safe door, Kevin chose to go in first. As soon as he pushed the door open, a withered hand stretched out from the dark space and grabbed Kevin. Ah! Both of them screamed at the same time. With the sunlight from outside, they should have discovered that the room was filled with vague figures of zombies. Help me. Kevin stretched out his hand towards Isla. Isla hesitated for a moment and then forcefully pushed Kevin into the room. He was blocking the door. As long as she pushed him in and then slammed the door shut, she would be safe. In the previous life, Kevin was used to asking me for help when he was in danger. He thought that Isla would definitely save him from danger just like I did. Unfortunately, the reality was cruel. He stared at Isla in disbelief, was entangled by more and more withered arms, and fell into the darkness. His expression was fixed at the moment of horror and despair. His lips were trembling, and he was muttering crazily. How could it be? There really is a group of zombies. There really is a group of zombies. 11. An hour later, at the nearby police station, Kevin was so angry that his face turned blue. He grabbed the collar of one of the zombies furiously. The zombie looked innocent. We borrowed this place for rehearsal. We were told not to scare others. Our people accidentally ran into them and quickly hid. Who knew he was possessed or something and rushed all the way to where we were hiding? Uncle Policeman, we really didn't do anything. We just touched him, and he peed his pants. The police officer who had already watched the surveillance was also helpless. Indeed, you barged into their rest area. They touched you because there were their props on the ground and they were afraid you'd step on them. As he spoke, he looked at Kevin's crotch. If no one brings you pants, how about I find you a pair first? It must be uncomfortable to be wet, right? Kevin was still in shock, ashamed and angry. Isla was sitting far away, looking disgusted. Someone was live, streaming the scene to me. I looked at Kevin's dejected appearance and sneered in my heart. Kevin actually had to thank me. It was me who made him see clearly what kind of person his white moonlight, whom he had been longing for in 2 lifetimes, was. Isla unilaterally announced their breakup on moments before they even walked out of the police station. She was so self-righteous, as if Kevin had wronged her. Kevin had such a bad reputation that the classmates easily believed her. The words of comfort filled the entire screen. Later, I anonymously posted the general process on the confession wall and attached a photo of Kevin with his wet pants. My description was very objective, not from the perspective of either of them, but because of that photo of him wetting his pants. Everyone naturally thought it was Isla who posted it. The classmates who lived on campus said that Kevin stormed into the girls' dormitory in a rage and almost beat Isla. Isla was scared and cried. After that, she posted a selfie in a state of shock. Her red-eyed appearance was really pitiful. To please her, someone went to cause trouble for Kevin. At first, it was just verbal provocation. Kevin was already very angry and of course didn't want to be bullied anymore. He was the one who started the fight. Although in the doomsday he mostly hid behind me, he still learned some basic fighting skills. The other person was severely beaten. Kevin had done a lot of annoying things in the past 6 months. He was arrogant and robbed others of resources and opportunities. Now he was so arrogant even when bullying a girl, and finally he aroused public anger. Everyone swarmed forward. Those with grudges avenged their grudges, and those with scores to settle settled their scores. The video of Kevin being beaten spread quickly. He was seen cowering and begging for mercy, no longer as arrogant as before. I looked at his frightened eyes and knew that he had unconsciously substituted the experiences after the zombie outbreak. In the doomsday, there were not many legal restrictions. Many people would use great force when in conflict. At first, Kevin cared about face and always wanted to compete for everything. Every time it was me who tried hard to apologize to others to save him from being beaten. Once when I wasn't there, he thought that with his status at that time, the other party wouldn't dare to do anything to him and verbally provoked them. As a result, he was almost beaten to death. This had become his long-lasting nightmare. After so many years, living again, the scene in the video coincided with that day, and he was terrified. So, the favorite in front of the principal became a clown full of jokes. A few days later, I started to run into Kevin frequently. Obviously, after falling out with Isla, I had become his second best choice. He was certain that I was crazy about him. Otherwise, how could I have stayed by his side through thick and thin in such an extreme environment in the doomsday? He thought that as long as he gave me a little signal, I would surely come back to him eagerly. In fact, even without what Isla did, being reborn, I would never be with Kevin again. At first, it was indeed because his eyebrows and eyes resembled Leo's and he was outstanding in ability that I liked him. Kevin probably thought I was useful and treated me well. Later, after he no longer relied on me except for my part of the patent, his true nature gradually emerged. I had thought about getting a divorce, but our research projects were too closely related. In order to catch up with the virus that was evolving wildly and not affect the research progress, I chose to endure such a life. I didn't expect that such an idea would actually kill me. 12. I didn't want to pay attention to Kevin at first. But Leo always came to see me under the pretext of my dad's entrustment, especially recently. He had taken a family visit leave and had nothing to do, so he was always hanging around in front of me every day. So when Kevin approached me with a problem again, I chose to take a look for him. I didn't miss the pride that flashed across Kevin's eyes. He thought he had me in his grasp and immediately got pushy, asking to invite me to dinner. I agreed. My dad sent my class schedule to Leo. He knew that after my morning classes, I wouldn't have classes until the next afternoon and would definitely go home, so he came to pick me up at the school gate. When Kevin and I walked to the gate and saw him, I pretended to be annoyed. Sorry, brother Leo, I forgot that you were coming to pick me up and promised a classmate to have dinner with him. Leo's deep eyes looked Kevin up and down and then said lightly, "It's okay, let's go together, I'll treat you." Before I could speak, Kevin refused first. "No need. We still need to discuss the problem, and it will take a long time." He didn't recognize Leo. In the doomsday, Leo always appeared fully armed in front of us. Only when talking to me would he take off his helmet and look directly at me. Leo ignored Kevin and turned to look at me. I smiled at him apologetically, indicating that Kevin was right. He stared at me for a moment, grinding his back teeth, and then suddenly smiled. "Okay, then call me if you need anything." In the following few days, Leo still took good care of me as my dad had told him, but there was obviously a sense of estrangement. I made the most of Kevin, often having video calls and voice calls with him in front of Leo, discussing research topics that he couldn't understand, making Leo deeply feel that we were ultimately not on the same path. Before he returned to the army at the end of the holiday, he said goodbye to me as if it were a farewell. "Saffron, I wish you happiness." My heart felt sour, but I smiled on the surface. "Brother Leo, be careful." The next day, I immediately returned to my cold-faced self. Kevin didn't notice at first. After being rejected by me several times, he finally sensed something was wrong. "What's wrong with you?" After failing to ask me out again, Kevin blocked me at the entrance of the library. This was what he often said to me after the doomsday. His actions often disappointed me, but I didn't want to quarrel, so I chose to be silent. He clearly knew it was his fault but would shift the blame to me, blame me for being moody and prone to getting angry. Now, living again, we had no relationship at all, but he was still used to blaming me. I was too lazy to say more and just said coldly, "Kevin, stop being a jerk and looking for me." 13. Isla quickly integrated with the classmates again. She pretended to be pitiful and allowed others to bully Kevin. When he went to the bathroom during the break, his school bag would be drenched with coffee or juice. His application forms would disappear inexplicably, affecting the progress of the experiment. Kevin wasn't the type to swallow his anger, but he had to. He just blamed himself for having offended too many people before. Every time he looked at Isla, his eyes were full of hatred, but Isla didn't care, being certain that he didn't dare to do anything to her. I wasn't spared either. Because Isla had disliked me before and I had been close to Kevin recently, I also became a target of bullying. However, unlike Kevin's passive endurance, I deliberately let her bully me. Then I applied for suspension from school on the pretext of depression. Suspension from school had been planned for a long time. I originally planned to get a minor injury during an upcoming parade. In this way, I could focus on research in my dad's newly built laboratory. Otherwise, as the child of a pharmaceutical tycoon, suddenly not going to school before the doomsday could easily cause trouble later. Now that Isla provided a reasonable reason, I naturally went along with it. During this period, my dad mentioned Leo. He thought he was getting old and would die one day. He wanted to find a reliable man to take care of me, even if Leo sacrificed. As a military family member, my treatment would definitely not be bad. I got very angry, and then he never mentioned him again. Time flew by. In a blink of an eye, that day arrived. I sent a message to Leo the night before, saying that I heard there were zombies near them and asking him to be extremely careful. I knew I shouldn't contact him anymore, lest he take it as a sign of hope, but I was really worried that my rebirth might have an impact on him. Leo replied to me in the middle of the night, saying that he knew. After a long time, he sent another message. "I can tell you don't like that guy. There's no need to feel wronged yourself to avoid me. I won't bother you casually in the future." I didn't reply to him. Subsequently, the zombie outbreak occurred. My dad, the employees of the company, and I immediately hid in the newly built underground experimental area, and the escape route of this experimental area happened to share the main road with the cafeteria. No one would suspect that this had been prepared in advance. The panic of the zombie outbreak only made them extremely grateful. My father survived the 2-month-long riot period and very smoothly joined the temporary government, starting the post-doomsday era. With his recommendation, I easily entered the Academy of Sciences. Then, relying on my own ability, I was promoted to the chief scientist in less than a year. During this period, I had been paying attention to Kevin's movements. When the zombie outbreak occurred, he had been protecting the principal, hoping to enter the Academy of Sciences through the principal's recommendation. Because of his high prestige in the medical field, the principal had become one of the senior members of the temporary Academy of Sciences from the beginning. Kevin had maintained a close relationship with the principal after being reborn, probably preparing for this day. He was really naive. There were countless people with interests tied to the principal. In the turbulent doomsday, why would the principal help him, who had no resources and no connections? So he was for granted left in the shelter by the principal and had to experience the riot and escape again. Not long after, Isla's family offered whole boxes of canned food as a reward for his capture. Isla died in the early stage of the zombie outbreak. Before her death, the signal was interrupted, and she didn't contact anyone. But she recorded a video. She said that Kevin had deliberately led her to a place with zombies. She thought it was a fake again until half of her face was torn off by a zombie. When her family found her, there was only a pile of white bones and an undamaged mobile phone left. I don't want Kevin to die easily, but I'm not going to protect him first for the revenge plan either. Anyway, it would be best if he could live in fear. If he was caught by Isla's family, so be it if he died. Such a person isn't worth me putting aside my scientific research to deal with him specifically. 14. The situation gradually stabilized. One day, when I went to a subordinate department to give a lecture, I actually met Kevin. He had a lame leg and scars all over his face. If he hadn't come to talk to me on his own initiative, I wouldn't have recognized him. How did you become like this? I pretended to be surprised, but couldn't help sneering in my heart. He changed his name and even disfigured himself to avoid the reward offered by Isla's family, but he didn't know that I was his biggest danger. I encountered some things. Kevin glossed over it. Then he stared at me with inquiry and said vaguely, I didn't expect you to be doing so well now. How come I didn't know you were the daughter of Lachine Pharmaceuticals before? I knew that the before he mentioned was in the previous life, and he suspected that I had also been reborn, otherwise. The difference between the two lives wouldn't be so great, but since I hadn't taken revenge on him by relying on my status, he wasn't sure. I pretended not to want to pay attention to him and gave him a distant smile. I still have things to do. I'll go first. Kevin got anxious and wanted to hold me back. Saffron, we were classmates after all. Before he could step forward, the accompanying bodyguard restrained him and forced him to kneel on the ground. I looked down at him. Kevin. When asking for help, one should have the right attitude. So many people ask me for help. Why do you think I should help you? Kevin was frightened by my display of power and didn't dare to say another word. In the Doomsday, there was a strict hierarchy. Those at the level of having bodyguards had the right to deal with potential dangers at will. That is to say, I could directly shoot him because of his collide. Legally, I wasn't in a hurry to implement my plan. I wanted Kevin to willingly walk into my trap, so I didn't look at him again and got on the helicopter that had long been parked on the rooftop. I still had to go to other places to guide research. When I landed, a familiar tall figure came forward to greet me. Hello, teacher, I'm Leo, in charge of the security this time. He was all business, overlapping with his resolute appearance in the previous life. My heart beat violently twice. And then I shook his outstretched hand as if nothing had happened. Hello, Captain Leo. The sound of the propellers was very loud. After greeting each other, we closed our mouths and didn't speak anymore. It was silent all the way. I had read the plan for this event. Clearly, the person in charge was a Captain Wang. Why did it suddenly become Leo? It should be my dad's doing. He was very busy, and so was I. We hardly saw each other. Every time we met, he would introduce someone to me. No matter how angry I was, he still went his own way. Probably because he thought that since I didn't like anyone, he might as well keep trying with Leo. Leo obviously knew about it. His body language told me that he was very nervous. I didn't feel too embarrassed. In the Doomsday, I didn't have to rack my brains to say or do something to reject him. I could just tell the truth. Uncle asked me to protect you. Before I could say anything, Leo spoke first. Saffron, Uncle is really worried about you. I know, but Leo raised his hand to signal me to listen to him. I know you're dedicated to research and don't want to get married. That's why I came to see you. Uncle said that you've been targeted by many organizations, so a special protection team needs to be set up. I can be the team leader of the protection team. If we're together on the surface, Uncle won't worry, and you'll also save trouble. I opened my mouth to refuse, but seeing Leo's clear and sincere eyes, I swallowed my words. He really wanted to abandon his existing status and position to protect me by my side. I'm afraid that no matter how I refused, he wouldn't give up, so I changed my words. What you said makes sense. All right, I'll apply to the superiors. You can stay by my side for a month. If it works out, you can become a full-time member after a month. Leo was eager to show his determination. I won't go back on my word. I smiled. What if I go back on my word? 15, as I expected. Kevin soon came to me again. After a meeting, he tried every means to squeeze in front of me. Leo stopped him when he was about 1 meter away from me. I have important materials for Saffron, teacher. Kevin had a flattering look on his face. In the previous life, when I had no way out, I had also sought opportunities like this. Kevin looked down on me for smiling and flattering others. Now he finally learned to be submissive and became the person he hated the most. I took the thick folder in his hand. It was full of scientific research achievements from the previous life, not only his and mine, but also those publicly released by others. Where did you get these? I pretended to be shocked. Kevin thought he had bet right, and his tired face showed some vitality. I just want to ask for a stable position. If you can give it to me, I can give you more, I sneered. How do I know you haven't given them to others, with these things? No matter who you give them to, you can get what you want, right? It's different. Kevin lowered his head, then mustered up the courage and looked up with deep affection. I like you, so I don't want to give them to others. Leo in front of me obviously paused. I pretended not to see it, after pretending to hesitate. I agreed to Kevin. Okay, after it's done, you give me all the results. The next day, Leo dug up all the details about Kevin. He brought his information to me. This person is not trustworthy. He even found the evidence that Kevin had tricked Isla into being eaten by zombies, and those dirty deeds that Kevin had done to survive in the doomsday. In the previous life, I had been busy running around for the future of the two of us. Although it was hard work, everything was legal and proper. Kevin had a proud bone and often laughed at me. Now that I wasn't in front of him to shield him, in order to survive, he spared no effort to do all kinds of bad things. However, more than this, what surprised me even more was Leo. I knew in the previous life that he had great abilities. I didn't expect that in this life. He already had such great abilities so early. Because of this, I couldn't keep him by my side even more. I raised my eyelids and looked at him indifferently. So, Leo didn't expect me to react like this and was stunned for a moment. What? I sighed. Captain Leo, you don't think I really believed him just because I thought he liked me, do you? He didn't give the results in his hand to others because he was afraid that others would kill him to monopolize these things. And in his eyes, I'm a fool. So he came to me. You don't have to worry about me being deceived. I know what I'm doing. I didn't miss the astonishment in Leo's eyes. The reason why I didn't drive him away was to let him see me clearly. I was no longer the naive and innocent little girl he liked back then. We couldn't go back. To whet Kevin's appetite, I didn't go to him until 3 weeks later. During this period, he went to the places where I appeared to block me, but was stopped by Leo from a distance. I heard him shouting angrily at Leo, saying that he was my dog, and that it was because Leo resembled him that I let him stay by my side. Leo's face looked very ugly, but I didn't explain anything. Anyway, he was about to leave soon. Misunderstandings and such didn't matter anymore. Kevin was exhausted from waiting. Perhaps at first, he was still thinking about how to bargain when he saw me again. Now, having experienced my indifference, he quickly showed his sincerity as soon as we met. Even more research materials than before. With these things, the global research progress on the virus could be advanced by at least 3 to 4 years. Naturally, I also had these things, but I couldn't announce them all at once, because of my and my dad's identities. It would only bring us huge troubles. If someone else gave them to me, I could make them public with peace of mind. I slowly flipped through the materials. When Kevin's patience was almost exhausted, I said leisurely, "There's no chance in the Academy of Sciences. Do you want to go to the medical college?" As the team leader of the clinical group, Kevin's eyes lit up. "I'll go." I nodded. "All right then, pack your things. I'll take you there now." 16. On the way, Leo wanted to say something but held back. I smiled. "I know what you want to say." I deliberately found that position for him in the medical college. The medical college had made remarkable achievements in front line treatment. It seemed nothing wrong that it had been recruiting the team leader of the clinical group all the time. In the previous life, Kevin and I also chose the team leader of the clinical group as our first choice because the chance of being selected was very high. The day before we planned to sign up, a riot occurred, and Leo led the team to protect our transfer. He heard Kevin mention this and quickly told me that I must not apply for the position of the team leader of the clinical group in the medical college. What they were actually looking for was a clinical experimental subject. The person needed to be injected with the zombie virus and then receive various treatments, including some means similar to torture. This was by the coalition government. Because the number of volunteers was too small, they used this method to deceive people. Especially medical students. Medical students had little experience and didn't contribute much to medical research, but if they were made into clinical experimental subjects, it would be easier to explain the physical condition. I was terrified when I heard this and deliberately hid mine and Kevin's certificates, and we were directly screened out in the primary selection. Kevin was very angry and didn't show me a good face for several days. I couldn't tell him the truth. This matter was too secretive. I was afraid that the more people knew, the more it would be for Leo. Now, I was just fulfilling Kevin's wish, letting him go to the medical college he most wanted to go to before and engage in the position he most wanted to engage in. Leo's face changed several times and finally he responded with silence. He probably couldn't figure out why I had become so cruel, in his opinion. The entanglement between me and Kevin was at most a relationship problem in college days, and it wasn't enough to make me hate him so much as to let him endure such torture. This was exactly what I wanted. Only in this way would he not have any expectations of me. I had already greeted the people in the medical college in advance. To prevent Kevin from going back on his word, they sent several people to pick him up, but he thought those people were coming to welcome me. He thought that because of my face, he would surely have a smooth career in the medical college in the future. I watched him sign and press his fingerprint very readily without even looking at the terms. Everyone applauded vaguely, and he still didn't notice anything. Subsequently, Kevin was taken to the house where they were held. It was less than 10 square meters and simply furnished. Even so, he was still very satisfied. After all, in the previous life. For a long time after we entered the Academy of Sciences, we still lived in a multi-person dormitory with extremely poor conditions. Kevin thought I had made special arrangements and said thank you, I will definitely work hard to be worthy of you. In the previous life, I protected and indulged him everywhere for the sake of the research progress, which gave him the illusion that I loved him to the core. Even though I had been cold-hearted and spoken to him several times before, it still didn't make him recognize the truth. I looked at all the anti-suicide protections in the room and smiled with satisfaction. Kevin just thought I was responding to his words and his expression was extremely happy. What a pity, I sighed. What? The original plan was to send both you and Isla here. The smile on Kevin's face froze, and he finally sensed something was wrong. It's a pity that you killed her so early. Before the words were finished, he looked stunned. You, how? I took an imperceptible step back and stood separately from him inside and outside the room. You want to ask me how I know? Of course, I've been keeping an eye on you, Kevin. I still remember the thing about you instructing her to inject me with the virus. 17. Kevin finally realized that I had also been reborn. His eyes instantly turned red with anger, and he gritted his teeth. Saffron, you tricked me. As he shouted, he rushed towards me. I raised my hand and pressed the red button outside the door, and the large iron gate with a railing crashed down, separating the two of us. What do you mean I tricked you? Isn't this the position you've been longing for in 2 lifetimes? Before, I deliberately lost our materials, resulting in our failure to be selected, and you were very angry with me. Kevin grabbed the railing, panting heavily, and stared at me firmly. So you've known all along? Yes, I've long known that the so-called team leader of the clinical group is actually an experimental subject to be injected with the virus. I saved you once. No, not just that time. I saved you many times. Kevin, look at how ungrateful you are. I always protected you and made you live a good life. But you wanted me to die. He was already frightened silly by the experimental subject I mentioned, and his face turned pale. Experimental subject? No, it's impossible. You're lying to me, aren't you? I didn't respond to his questioning, but just smiled brightly. Kevin, we're even, I forgive you. Kevin collapsed. He begged and cursed at times. I didn't look back and walked out of this prison. Leo was ordered to wait at the door. When he saw me come out, the expression on his face was hard to describe. He couldn't hear my conversation with Kevin, but he must have heard his curses at me. Captain Leo, today is the last day of our agreement, I said coldly. Later, you can just go back directly. I've called someone else to pick me up. She injected me with the zombie virus. Clearly is the result I want, but why the heart so uncomfortable? After that, we didn't say another word. I was picked up by someone else and got in the car, and he just watched me silently. The prepared words of farewell were stuck in my throat. In the end, I didn't say anything and told the driver to drive away. with my great revenge avenged, I completely dedicated myself to scientific research. I hope that in my lifetime, I can see the day when humans defeat the zombie virus. Soon, my appointment letter came down. With the scientific research achievements that Kevin gave me, I became the second in command of the Academy of Sciences and was about to start a one-year global technical exchange tour. When my dad learned about this, he just let out a deep sigh. Saffron, Dad just wants you to be well, but you have great ambitions, and Dad will also support you. Be careful, keep in touch often, and don't make Dad worry. I looked at the gray hairs at my dad's temples, and my nose felt a bit sour. But I smiled when I spoke. Dad, you have to believe that I'm experienced and will definitely come back to you safely. Okay. My dad's eyes were red. Before he started crying, he sent me to the car, turned around without looking back, and left in a hurry. Sitting in the car, I no longer had to hold back, and big teardrops fell. We both knew that this journey was full of dangers, even with the experience of 2 lifetimes. I might not be able to stay safe. A tissue was handed in front of me. I took it and thanked the person at the same time, but when I met those familiar eyes, I froze on the spot. Leo had curved eyebrows and eyes, with a doting smile. Boss, after careful consideration, I submitted an official application to the superiors. Leo, the captain of your exclusive escort team, reporting for duty.